inviting me. This is a great opportunity for me, and I'm very glad to share that time with you. My name is Ann Junta Archer, and I'm a nurse practitioner. I currently work at GuideLink, the new access center in Johnson County, and see patients there. And the rest of my time, I'm an assistant professor at the College of Nursing. So I do teach nurse practitioner students. So what I was asked to talk about is, to kind of the stress of the holiday is coming, and kind of just having a discussion with you on how we can take better care of ourselves during the holiday. So feel free to interrupt at any time if you need to. This is not a very formal presentation. I'll have more questions, and I'm sure you hopefully all have good ideas of things that we can do for ourselves during that stressful time too. So one of the big things is that we sometimes put ourselves in a situation where, we put a lot of extra works. We give ourselves a lot of different tasks, whether it's, food, preparing food, inviting people, cleaning the house, traveling, or we're just getting pulled in every direction, and that, definitely is causing a lot of stress. So some of the hints and things that I think we can do is really taking the time to slow down and taking the time for ourselves. And that it doesn't need to take, hours of yoga or visualization and all of that, but trying to kind of maybe make lists to organize and prioritize what really is important to us during that time, making, planning menu ahead so we can, kind of plan the groceries ahead instead of waiting until the last minute. And mostly it's to, slow down and kind of help us slow down. So I'm going to try to share a short video with you that kind of explain why it's important for us to slow down. So I'm hoping it's going to work. If it don't, you let me know, and we'll do something different. So let me get this up. I'm using a program, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's called Headspace. It has some free content and it has some paying content too. The company has been very generous and has offered to healthcare provider free since COVID. So I've been using it a lot, and I encourage you to look for it. There's other things that you can see on the, that you can Google as well. So let me share the screen. Let's see. Do the desktop, I think. I'll get there. Bigger. Can you all see that funny figure on the screen?
Yes.
All right. So let me start.
Think of the mind as a still pool of water. Each thought is like a raindrop. It creates a ripple on the surface. If it starts raining very hard, or it's perhaps a little windy, then the pool might become so cloudy that we can't see what's on the bottom. But the potential to return to our still pool of water is still there. In fact, by training the mind, the ripples naturally begin to slow. And as the surface of the pool becomes still, it gets easier to see what's beneath the surface. Sometimes we might like what we see, at other times, well, maybe not so much. Now, occasionally finding things we don't like may sound off-putting, but it's really important because it's part of letting go of those things. Accepting what's in our mind also helps us to be less critical of ourselves. It can even help us to be less critical of others. So we start to feel more content in life, to experience more harmonious relationships, and to be more at ease with the world around us.
So again, taking care of ourselves and taking that time for us is really important during those, stressful time. And you can find a lot of information on, Googling things. There are things that you can listen to. There's things that, exercises that you can do that might only take a minute, even taking a deep breath and kind of thinking like, okay, I'm going to take that time and I'm going to slow down. So just, try to practice those things because it's going to be helpful for you. And we're more effective when we're not, stressed out and running around in our head or physically. Another big stressor for the holidays that, the money issues. There's a lot of expectation that's created by the media. We see advertisement, whether it's in the store, sometimes started in August and definitely even before, Halloween, you see Christmas trees everywhere, and that can really be difficult. And so some ideas is, maybe to set a budget and trying to stick to it, to whether it's a list of the gifts and sticking to what the budget is going to be that you set yourself up to, or also trying to be creative. Sometimes, gifts can be not expensive, whether it's something that you make yourself or offer to help, like babysitting, or maybe helping somebody clean their house, or doing something that you can do that doesn't, necessarily cost money. Anybody has used any of those kind of creative ways to gift instead of, buying and spending money for it, that they would be willing to share?
I make my own bookmarks. I take watercolor paper and make lines of color, sometimes rainbows, other times different shades of blue, and I cut them into strips and put stickers on them. And it's a nice thing to tuck inside an envelope. It feels like a little gift.
That's a great idea. I really like that. And then you making cookies, Leslie said, definitely that's, food is always a good thing. But yeah, and I like that idea that you can send it and put it, your bookmark in an envelope if people are far away. That's a great idea. I'm a knitter, so I like to knit things. Sometimes I think people I'm going to get tired of getting a scarf anymore, but it's something that I know I can do, and it's fun doing it too. So you can get the benefit of both doing it and then sharing it. Anybody else has an idea?
I like writing letters or poems or songs for my loved ones.
Great. Very cool. Yeah. I think we kind of get away from writing, snail mail letters, and it feels so good to get one. I think that's a great thing. And how do you do with a song? They're written, or do you record them?
I have recorded them. It just depends on how much time you want to put into it.
Right. That's really cool. That's such a special gift that definitely nobody else can do. Very cool. Anybody else? Those are really great ideas. So thank you for sharing. This is kind of, we're setting ourselves many times, but particularly I think during the holidays, even more so, to setting ourselves up with very high expectation. And in my head, I was thinking, Martha Stewart kind of collection, or the Food Network, magazine, and all the amazing food setup that they have. And I know I'm never going to get to do that. And sometimes I think we need to think that maybe a good enough holiday really could be a pretty nice holiday. And the stress of setting ourselves so high expectation is not going to really make that great of a holiday. And I really like that saying that when you release expectation, you're free to enjoy things for what they are instead of what you think that they should be. What do you think, what are some of the expectation that you set yourself up for the holiday that maybe you think you can let go?
Well, I think sometimes this year I've already started because there's going to, for a lot of different reasons and changes in the family and grandchildren, I'm already telling myself I have to be flexible. This is a flexible Christmas because I'm one that is big on a lot of traditions. This is how we've done it before. Well, that doesn't mean it has to be that way this year. So, or there was a time when the expectations were, when my parents were still alive, oh, my mother wants it to be this way. And that was like, you know, we have expectations of sometimes of relatives and things. So to let go of expectations, I've started the mantra already. It's better that everyone is happy and has a good time. Yeah. And I was a nurse before, you know, becoming NP. So I know for my kids, it's been for, you know, since they were very little, that Christmas was not always on Christmas because I worked that day. So I think you know, you definitely create expectation depending on what your experiences are. And I think as we kind of restart of getting together again, since most of us kind of stayed away the last year, maybe is a good time to think about what are those expectations and are they really, you know, helpful, or are they really tradition? Is it, you know, is a good thing. I think it's good to try to find things, but I really like your started early thinking that there are things that maybe you can let go. Very good. Anyone else wants to share?
This is Roger. I would say that just don't take anything too overly serious. This is the holidays. It should be a good time, you know. And it's kind of sometimes it's a choice to take it personally or be stressed about it. A lot of times it's just not that big a deal, and you know, just understand that that's okay. Right.
Yep. Kind of let it go of things for sure. That's, you know, should be throughout the year, but definitely during the holiday, you know, as you know, somebody mentioned before, I think getting together is the important part, and then enjoying that part without all the expectation that we put into that. Great, thank you.
One of the things my Weight Watcher leader says about trying to not to overeat through the holidays, a holiday, not a holiday or a holiday month.
Yeah, good. Yeah, and sometimes that's definitely a big stressor that we put on ourselves to, you know, if we are on a journey to kind of eat healthy or watch our weight, that sometimes it's okay to give ourselves a holiday, you know, too. And I think it's always, you know, bringing or trying to cook, you know, healthy things and maybe changing those tradition and making healthier, you know, offering is a good thing too. But that definitely can be a stressor for a lot of people. And it's hard to say no. You know, somebody mentioned, you know, baking cookies as a present is a good thing. And for some, it's, you know, it's difficult to say, you know, I'm really sorry, but I'm, you know, kind of watching what I'm eating. So being mindful of that is important. Great. So, you know, we talked about that just in a little bit ago, that, you know, family stress is a big issue during those holidays. And as I mentioned before, that we're, you know, getting back together, where last year most of us kind of stayed apart. It is a very polarized time. There is a lot of very polarized issues around. And so, you know, trying to kind of, you know, go through those holidays as smoothly as we can with a family that we might not see very often can be stressful. Some of the ideas that, you know, that I found was that, you know, to really allow yourself to decline some invitation. There's nothing that says you have to go to every places that you've been invited to. And if you're really uncomfortable, it's okay to say, you know, I'm really sorry about this year. This is not going to work, and allow yourself to do that is okay. when you're there, pick your battles and see what are, maybe set up a rule of what our conversation are going to be avoided or not. And that's okay to do that. It's definitely okay to walk away and take a break when the conversation becomes too heated and uncomfortable, and trying, ourselves to set up a positive tone and not go in the conversation where we know there might be some stronger idea on the other side. And that it is difficult, and we know, like we always say, we can't choose our families, and but sometimes it's okay to say no. Anybody has ideas of things that they're planning that they want to share? And I always told my children who are, getting older and getting girlfriends and boyfriends to say, I never wanted to be the one that says, the holiday at our house is, the Thursday from 2 to 4, and you better be there or else. I want to be, I'm flexible. My goal is for us maybe to be together if we can. And if it's this week, for Thanksgiving, it's going to be on the Friday. Other years it's been the Saturday or Sunday. And so I really wanted to be flexible. My goal is for everybody to get together, and the day really doesn't matter that much. And so having some, flexibility in that, I think is helpful. I think one of the very important issue is that even though we just talked about parties and families, and a lot of people can be very lonely because they might not have those, whether family or social connection. And again, the media make it, this is a family holidays. And so that can be very difficult for people that either, used to or no longer have those connection. That's a time sometime where, grief is present when we remember those that are no longer with us. And so for, for those things that we learn, through COVID, as we are doing now, that Zoom is a good way to connect with people. Is not like being together, but it's a ways that we can connect. So for those that are not able to come or not able to be present, kind of remember that we can set up some online form of corresponding. For people that don't have those social connections, sometimes attending, concert and feeling that being part of something in common can be helpful. Sometimes finding others that also are not able to connect with their families and doing some potlucks or getting together would be a good thing. There's always opportunity to volunteer. I'm sure NAMI has plenty of opportunity, volunteering to offer meals or things like that is a good way to kind of connect with different people when we can't connect with our loved ones. But that's, I think that can be a very difficult time for people that feel very isolated. So reaching out to those people is a good thing that we can do. Anybody has a comment about that? The things that you have done, or things that you do for others that you find that has been helpful?
This is Roger. I think just being mindful about where everybody else is at during the holidays too. I mean, not physically only, but just sort of, do they have friends, family? Do they having hard times? They have financial troubles, all that kind of stuff. And
Right.
so maybe reach out, because sometimes just a little conversation is all that's really needed to be of help.
For sure. Yeah. And I think, like you said, to be mindful and recognizing that not everybody is in the same place. Great.
I think a lot of our young adults, I've seen with my kids and their friends, and I read about it around the country, is this idea of having Friendsgivings, you know, where you create
Mhm.
an alternative, and that could be true at Christmas too, or at New Year's, you know,
Right.
just new rituals. You know,
Yeah.
new rituals are always possible. We can invent new things, new formats.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like you said, you know, before that, it doesn't need to be how it has always been, by finding different connection and connected with, you know, in a different way with people is where we can be very creative, and it can be very rewarding for sure. Yeah, my son was just telling me about the Friendsgiving, and that's what they're doing on Thursday. So it's like, great, you know, this is wonderful to have, you know, a group of friends that where you want to connect, and, you know, they've been out of school for a while, and it's a time to reconnect. One of the issue for some people, and that can be throughout the year for sure, but that can definitely, you know, be exacerbating, is dealing with crowds. You know, crowds and lines are definitely part of the holiday, whether it's shopping or whether it's, you know, other things. And that's, you know, that can be increasing the stress, where we feel that we have to buy that, you know, particular gift, and it's only in that one place, and we know it's going to be very busy. And so try to be creative, sometimes trying humor when we're in a line where people are getting stressed out. You know, kindness and mindfulness can always be, you know, helpful in that, you know, during that time. And, you know, trying to strike a conversation, you know, when we are in the line is always a good thing. Sometimes taking deep breath and using mindfulness, thinking of the moment, and not letting our anxiety kind of continue to grow and grow, can be very, very helpful. So let me see if that's going to work, if we can kind of try to. And this is just let me make it
Everyday
bigger.
mindfulness. What is mindfulness? Often when people think about mindfulness, they imagine someone sitting on a cushion alone in a room with their eyes closed. Sometimes that is what mindfulness practice looks like. And sitting with your eyes closed in this way has great benefits. But mindfulness is also so much more. Mindfulness is a way to approach everyday life that makes living more enjoyable and less stressful. You can apply mindfulness to everything you do.
Let me try to share my screen. I don't think you can see it.
Whether you are eating, walking, or sitting in class. Mindfulness is a choice that you can make at any moment. Mindfulness can help you better understand how you feel and what you are experiencing. It's about being aware of the present moment instead of replaying the past or worrying about the future. Mindful awareness means being aware with kindness. It's about being engaged in everyday life, choosing to be nice to yourself and others in the present moment, and bringing an open awareness to all moments, whether those moments are pleasant, neutral, or maybe even unpleasant. Bringing to that awareness some curiosity and kindness instead of judgment and criticism. You may be surprised at what you learn if you are curious and kind. This does not mean that you need to be meditating. You just need to be paying attention on purpose with a little friendliness. This can help you with stress or anxiety or even sadness. It helps you focus on what is happening right now because worrying about the future or the past all the time can be exhausting. Practicing paying attention in a kind way to little things can help train your mind so you can develop more ease across your life. Anything can be leveled up with mindfulness. Here are some examples of ways you can be mindful in everyday life. Right now, you might be sitting in a chair watching this video on your phone. How heavy does your phone feel in your hand? What parts of your hand is the phone touching? Is your phone hot, warm, or maybe cool? Are you sitting down? What parts of your body are being supported by the chair? If you are standing, can you feel which parts of your feet are connected to the ground? Or where you are placing the weight of your body on your feet? This is all mindfulness. Or maybe when you're talking with someone, instead of listening to them so that you can give them a response or to answer them, listen with the goal of understanding them better. This is a little change that can make a big difference in a conversation. The trick is not to automatically react to what you're paying attention to. Just notice what body sensations and emotions come up. And notice your reactions or judgments, because there will be judgment. Just try not to judge yourself for how judgmental you might be. There's no right or wrong. Just noticing what's happening in the moment. This can be noticing what's going on around you or inside of you. Let any and all things that you notice be there. You can practice this type of mindfulness anytime, anywhere, and under any circumstance. Simply be aware of what's happening in that moment, like this moment. What are you noticing right now?
Has anybody been using mindfulness and find it effective? Any particular exercise that you find more helpful than others?
Yes, I try to do it while we're visiting our son. Our son is very, very sick, and he's currently at the MHI in Independence, and visiting him is really, really stressful at times. And we are currently allowed to visit him outside, going for walks with him. So while things are stressful, I try to focus on how pretty the trees are, or look at the birds, or focus on breathing, instead of focusing on the emotion. And I find it to be extremely helpful. And the other thing I do is I talk to myself and say, in a couple of hours, things are going to be calm again.
Yeah.
I can get through this. So yes, I find it really helpful.
Great, those are good ideas. I really like the idea of being outside and using the nature as a guide of where your mind is going. Thank you for sharing that. There's there are again some resources that you can find, but it doesn't need to be structured. And just like Leslie said, it can be just taking the time to kind of be mindful of your surrounding and be in the moment instead of thinking of whether it's a past or where is a future, and that can be really, really helpful. So I encourage you to use that when you are in a stressful situation, for sure. The next one is having too many parties or too many invitation, and whether it's family, friends, at work, the cookie exchanges. And again, I want you to give yourself the permission to say no. Sometimes it's just too much, and choosing wisely which are those grouping of people are important to you or not, and it's totally okay to say no. And it can be difficult and it can be frustrating and people can be very pushy. But again, I think thinking of yourself once in a while is really important. Anybody has a graceful way that they are able to say no to some of those invitations? Or maybe not so grateful?
So this is Roger. I guess what I tell our staff at least is that it's okay to say no, because it's good to be assertive. It doesn't mean you have to be mean or anything like that. It's just that, and in converse, if you say yes, either you're overtaxed or maybe you aren't able to follow through, and then there's disappointment and stress. So I think it's just best to be honest with yourself, honest with others, and it's okay. It's
Right.
okay to say no is not a bad word. In fact, you need to have that in your vocabulary.
Good. That is a great way to put it. And it has nothing to say that you don't like those people. It's just that sometimes it's just too much. So again, being aware of that and understanding when people say no. Great. And sometimes we're just exhausted. And this is a picture of Tina is my cat, who's 6 months old, and she likes to sleep on my desk when I'm there. So cats are good at making the time. There's a time to sleep and there's a time to go wild. So sometimes we're not as good as making those, separations. So there's definitely late parties, sometimes working extra, whether it's cleaning the house or cooking or all those kind of things. And sleep is definitely extremely important. So be mindful. Alcohol consumption, sometimes they can definitely be preventing you from having good, and restful sleep. Extra carb, as we know, kind of makes us take a naps, but sometimes they can, not make us sleep a very, well-rested night. And so really kind of making the pledge to have a healthy, season, as we mentioned before, whether it's watching what we eat, but, being very protective of our sleep is really, really important. Anybody has good ideas of how to keep our sleep schedule?
Well, sorry to keep chiming in, but this is Roger again. I had somebody suggest that you maybe set up an alarm to let you know when it's time to start winding down for bed at 8, 9, 10, whatever o'clock. I've tried that and it's really kind of neat. Usually you think of an alarm to wake you up, but it's actually just to tell you to do something.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I have something on my phone that comes and tells me you have about 15 minutes before your usual bedtime or something. So I think setting up a reminder and making it a priority, saying, okay, time to slow down and kind of think about sleep. Sleep hygiene is really important, and everything, everybody is different. So some things might work for people and some not, but finding what works for you and being mindful that during the holiday, you're going to continue to kind of make a priority to get your sleep, I think is really important. So yeah, if you have to make an alarm, and that sometimes might be easier to say, oh, sorry folks, time for me to go. And it might be a good way to help, and then to have those discussion as to why using that.
I think a lot of times sleep hygiene sites talk about, and I probably should do something like this: establish your own ritual, what works for you. For some people, maybe it's turning off all screens and just reading, because that is a different way of your brain. Maybe it's listening to some quiet music. Maybe it's having warm milk like the old days. I don't know.
Right.
But I think that it would be good for me to, since I'm trying to be flexible this Christmas, create a little ritual that will help me my body gets the signal, okay, we're going to try and go to sleep.
Winding down.
know.
Yeah. Yeah, you make a really good point. I think everybody has to kind of find what works, what works for them, Is it Margalie said, she set up an alarm to take her medication and then she's in bed. And so, I don't think it's being a party pooper. I think it's just, this is your rhythm and this is what works for you. And I think people should be, understanding and mindful of that. So that's what works for you. And it's different. We definitely read about not having screen, and I think for some people it's important. For some people say I need it because that's what helped me fall asleep. But so trying to figure out what is that ritual is going to be and try to keep it the same is what I think is more important than actually what you do. But sleep is important, and that true for the rest of the year as well. Sometimes the end of the year is a time where we kind of think about what goals we accomplished or didn't. Sometimes it can be overwhelming, that we didn't meet all the goals, whether it was certain thing that we wanted to do, or was it losing weight or eating healthier or exercising. And it kind of sometimes we get stuck of thinking those are the things that we didn't do or we didn't accomplish, but really kind of trying to reevaluate, whether those goals are still important right now. A year is a long time. We know a whole lot can happen, in a year. Over the past couple of years, we have learned that. And trying to find, different ways to kind of reset our thinking. I know I've been trying to exercise more, and I really hate exercising. And my thought is always that, it's boring. I have way more exciting other things to do. And lately I've been trying to reframe it to think maybe I just haven't found the right exercise for me. I haven't found, the one that might be, fun for me to do. So sometimes rephrasing those negative thoughts that I can't do it in a way to say, I did that part, or I did, a portion of it, and I should be proud of myself for doing that. So kind of regrouping and reframing is really important, and maybe thinking of a different way, either different goals or finding a different way to get there, and not letting that feeling that we didn't get things accomplished run us over. Anybody has a comment about that, or ideas of how we can reframe our thinking in a more positive way? It's definitely a tough time, and we need to work at that. And again, the end of the year is sometime when we think about it, but I think we have a lot of reframing that we can do and set our mind in a more positive way on an everyday basis, and that's helpful. So Margalie said, reflecting on 221, she's proud of creating, writing, and being published in retirement. Wow, that is definitely an amazing accomplishment. Congratulations, that's really cool. It's never too late, for sure. Sometimes we just had that things, and that it's just too much, and there's too much going on, and it's really hard to go. And some of the things that we can think about is, if, people are in treatment or haven't been, in therapy, this would be a really good time to set a goal to start, meeting with a therapist that can help, kind of with those maybe negative thinking or ideas. And so I would encourage, people to think about that. If people have a hard time with their medication or haven't been taking them on a regular basis, kind of making an appointment with your provider to either discuss changes because, you know, you might not feel that they're working, or, and again, that can be for ourselves, but that's also being mindful of people around us. And I think the most important thing is really to practice self-care. This is a, you know, a stressful time. Again, as we mentioned many times before, this should be done throughout the year by kind of creating, maintaining those routine with, particularly with exercise and sleep and eating, you know, healthy. Self-care is really important, and taking care of ourselves should be, you know, on the top of our list. Again, practicing mindfulness, whether it's, you know, guided through taking yoga classes, or whether it's just, you know, meditating or finding things on YouTube or things that you can do, listening to music. And sometimes just taking a deep breath and taking that time to be in the moment can be something that can be really, really helpful. So I really encourage you during that, you know, those time and for the rest of the year and for the years to come to, you know, practice self-care, because I think it's very, very important, and that's what keeps us from either falling apart, and it also helps us communicate with other. When we're feeling better, then we're better able to be social and engage in whether it's work or whether it's just volunteering or friends of others, and that's thinking of ourselves is important. All right, those are just some of the resources that I have. The Mayo Clinic has some good information about stress management during the holidays or not. NAMI has a great, you know, information, and I took a lot of my information from the NAMI site. And again, looking for free information. If you are interested in yoga, there are different ways that are free that you can access those. So I'm gonna stop sharing, and we have time for questions or ideas that people have on how we can spend our holiday time in a more positive way.
I just want to say thank you. This has been a very good presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been fun getting it together. So, and you know, you have great resource, and you all know how to access those resources. You've done it before, so I hope that you continue to do that.
And thank you for I think it's going to call them reminders to be mindful and to provide yourself self-care and then give yourself a break, basically, when things get stressful and tough.
Yep.
You know, I have some real hope for the younger generation, because there's this awareness about mindfulness and emotional intelligence that really was not taught when I was young. I don't think many of us adults we're learning it for ourselves now in many ways, but it's impressive to me what I see both in media, like on PBS, Daniel Tiger is like telling them, when you're upset, you stop, you count to 4, take a deep breath. I mean, these are amazing tools. So and our 4-H group here is teaching mindfulness. So I hope that we also remember that let's help young children learn it early, and they will have these tools throughout their life then.
For sure. Yeah, that is such a great comment. That is so important. And those are definitely learned skills. You know, I don't think we are born with learning how to take time for ourselves or being mindful of our environment. So it's not, you know, it doesn't take great skills to do it, but people being reminded and giving some tools on how to do it. And I would agree. I think the schools are doing a better job at that than, you know, they have in the past. So, and I remind that, you know, to a lot of my patients that if I, you know, tell them you need to take time, and, you know, those videos and things, you can definitely do it as a family and with your kids, and learning kids that it, you know, to slow down, and whether it's listening to music, and you know, sometimes it's good to isolate and, you know, everybody needs time on their own, but sometimes there are some of those exercises that you can do as a group, and it's good for everybody to take a break and take a few minutes to kind of let things go. So definitely, I think it's a good, you know, tool to pass on to our kids for sure. Other comments or ideas that people want to share? Marguerite said, thank you. I thank you too. Said she has a Thai teacher that calls her the triumphant Thai tortoise for being persistent in practicing wellness. That's good. And sometimes the slow way is the right way to go. Good. I like that title. I would be proud of it too. So it's not always the race, you know, to being the best and doing the right thing. Sometimes going slow is the way to go. So good for you.
Slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the holiday is definitely a time that we forget that, you know, saying, but it continues to be important for sure. So thank you for sharing that. Well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share that time with you. I learned a lot from you too, and I really wish you some great holidays and a good time to kind of rewind and take care of yourselves too.